My name is Jou Jie, and my metric number is D20201095625. My height is 158 cm, and my weight is 50 kg. My course is AT20, which is Information Technology, and I come from Sungai Besar, Selangor. I have 3 members in my family, which is my father, my sister, and me. My mother already passed away since I am 3 years old. As an IT professional, every devices you work with will be powered, and you need to be very careful about how you work around those different devices. If you are going to be working around those devices, you need to be sure that you remove all power before touching anything inside of a computer. Some of the components of these devices have capacitor that will store power, and by simply touching those capacitor, and you could still get a shock even though it do not connect with a power source. You need to be sure that you know exactly what you are touching when you are working around those devices. When you are replacing the power supply, it's very common to replace with the entire power supply rather than trying to repair individual components on this inside of the power supply. And don't forget, when you are in the data center, they're generally UPS and very large cooling system, or even working with laser printers, they're very high voltage. You need to be very careful when you are working around those devices and remain safe and away from that high voltage. Introduction of computer hardware. With each passing day, we spend more time on computer, and we expect them to meet more complex needs. Computer hardware engineers have a leading role in the research on and development of advanced computer technology, and even influence how it's used. Computer hardware engineers research, design, and test computer system and components, such as processor, circuit board, memory, and storage media. In most cases, computer hardware engineers is to discover ways to make computers faster and more powerful. Some more specialized engineers design other devices that incorporate computers, like car and medical equipment. Some work closely with software developers to design phone, tablets, or other devices. Computer hardware engineers need to be creative problem solvers and work as well as a member of a team by using their power of reason to find original solutions. Usually, computer hardware engineers have a bachelor's degree in computer engineering, though degrees in electrical engineering or computer science are also accepted. Some positions require a master's degree. Many employers expect computer hardware engineers to have at least some familiarity with software. In this fast-moving millennium, few shape our information worth like computer hardware engineers. Now, I want to describe some components. First is memory. Random access memory, which is RAM, is the temporary thinking storage part of the computer if you would compare it with a brain. The RAM store data is actively being worked on by the CPU. It can read and write very fast, but lose everything it had stored once the power is turned off. The next is power supply. There are so many power supply brands with different wattage, and this can make quick difficult to decide which one to buy. The important things that you want to know is how much wattage your current PC build will need to run stable, and maybe how much you will need in the future if you are planning on adding some components such as GPU and drive. The next is very important part, the motherboard. The motherboard is a print circuit board that every other computer hardware components will be attached to. It's like a central hub that manages all the other parts. The motherboard has connector for cable, like power cable and data cable. The motherboard has lot of little building blocks, like capacitor, transistor, jumper, and lots of tiny parts that all go towards while making your different hardware components work well together. Next is the case. Computer case is nothing more than a fancy looking box that holds everything's computer components. It can be opened and closed and usually has predefined area with screw and hole the other components are supposed to be placed and attached to. Step-by-step instruction on computer hardware setup. Step 1. Procuring parts. First, you will need to buy parts necessary to build the computer. The parts we will use in this project, such as processors, which is CPU, computer case, optical drive, memory, power supply, SATA cables, motherboards, processor fan, case fan, hard drive, and assortment of case and drive screw. You need to double check the manufacturer's specification on all items before you purchase them. Step 2. Gather tools and suppliers. Gather the tools you will need in this project, such as screwdriver, wire cutters and strippers, small flashlight, utility knife, small container to hold screws, heatsink compound, and grounding strap. You may not use every single one of these tools in every installation, but it is best to have all of them on hand in case you have a use for them. You must be careful because using incorrect tools for a task, such as turning a screw with a knife blade, can cause equipment damage and injury. Step 3. Open the case. Open the computer case by removing the side panel. Find the screw that hold the side panels in place and remove them that show in figure 3 and circle in red. The panels is removed by the first sliding in back that show in figure 4, then lifting it away from the case that show in figure 5. The case may have sharp edge. You need handle with careful to avoid injury. Step 4. Prepare the case for assembly. 3 things need to be done before assembly begins. First, you need to remove any parts or packaging material that may have been shipped inside the case that show in figure 6. Then, you need to remove the cover for optical drive. In our case, we will be removing the cover on the highest drive as shown in figure 7. Do this by pressing in the retaining tabs that show in figure 8. Then, you need to make note of the cable pre-installed in the case. This should be front panel connection for features such as power switch. If they are not labeled, consult the manufacturer documentation and label yourself before other parts are installed in the case. Step 5. Ground yourself. Put the grounding strap on your wrist that show in figure 10 and connect the other end to the computer case. If your strap is not equipped with a clip to hook to the case, find a place to wedge against the metal as shown as figure 11. This will prevent any build-up of static electricity on your body from damaging the computer component. Step 6. Install motherboard. Now, I want to show how to install the motherboard. Firstly, install the I/O bezel plate into the opening in the back of the case that show in figure 14. It push in from the inside. Second, install the standoff in the case. The standoff screw into the motherboard mounting hole shown in figure 14. Check the screw hole location on the motherboard for exact placement. Thirdly, lower the motherboard into the case and align with the I/O bezel. Last, just install the screw. Step 7. Install hard drive. Hard drive is a device that stores all of your data. It is 3.5 wide and need to be mounted so that you can gain access to the cable connection on the back that shown in figure 16. If that is not possible, you may need to connect the cable before you install the drive. To mount the drive, you need to find 3.5 drive bay to install the drive. If you have trouble finding a place to mount the drive, consult the case documentation for suggestion. Then, slide the drive into the place until the screw hole on the side are lined up with the hole in the case. Then, just install the screw. Step 8. Install optical drive. The optical drive is 5.25 wide and it installed in the drive bay that we removed the cover from a previous step. Cable access consideration apply to this drive also. To install the drive, we need to slide the drive into the drive bay until the screw holes are lined up and the front of the drive is flush with the front of the case that shown in figure 18. Besides, we also need to make sure that it is oriented correctly. Then, we just install the screw. Step 9. Install the CPU. The CPU is the brain of the computer. It installed on the motherboard in the socket that shown in the figure 20. To install the CPU, we need to find the corner marking that designated on pin 1 of the CPU. On this ADM brand processor, the corner is marked with an arrow. Consult the manufacturer documentation to specific information about your processor. Then, you need to leave the metal rod next to the socket that shown in the figure 20. Then, we need to find the corresponding marking on the CPU socket and insert the CPU so that the markings are lined up. Last, we need to push the rod down to lock the processor in the place that shown in figure 21. Step 10. Install RAM. The RAM is the temporary memory location that the processor works from. The memory is easy to install. First, we need to set the RAM board in the socket that shown in the figure 22. Check to see that the notch in the board is in the correct location. If it is not, turn it around 180. Then, press firmly on the both ends of the board and set it on the socket. Make sure the tabs are locked into the place that shown in figure 23. Step 11. Install the CPU fan. The CPU fan is really a combination of a heatsink and fan together. To install the CPU fan, we need to place the thermal compound to the CPU following the instruction provided with the compound. Then, set the fan assembly on the CPU with mounting tabs a link. Thirdly, pull the locking rod down on the fan assembly to lock into the place. Last, connect the fan assembly power connector to the motherboard. Consult the manual to determine proper placement. Step 12. Install case fan. The case fan is usually installed on the back panel of the case. If the fan mount is not obvious, consult the case documentation. To mount the fan, first, you need to align the hole by holding the fan to the mounting pads on the inside of the case as shown in figure 25. The fan needs to be mounted so that it blows the air out of the case. Then, you need to insert the screw from the outside of the case and tighten. Step 13. Install power supply. Consult your case documentation for details and then follow this direction to install the power supply. First, you need to align the mounting holes in the case and power supply as shown in figure 26. Then, insert the screw and tighten. Step 14. Connect cable. With all of the components that installed in the case, the jungle of wires can be daunting. It is important to consult the motherboard manual in order to make sure the proper connection can be made. There are two kinds of connection, power and data. Every device that has been installed needs power. In figure 27, the power supply connectors are shown. The motherboard has two connections, and there are two connectors, specifically the SATA devices. The other connector will run fans and other non-SATA devices. Data cable connect drive and front panel device to the motherboard. Please consult the motherboard documentation for exact placement of connector. Step 15. Wrap up. Now that the components are completely installed, the last thing need to do is reinstall the side panel on the case. The computer now is ready to be turned on and to have software load on it. If the computer has problems starting up, check all of the component connection and mounting to make sure that you have hooked everything up correctly. Consult individual component manual for specific troubleshooting information if problem persists. Introduction of Windows 10 operating system. Windows 10 is a major version of the Microsoft Windows operation system that was released on July 29, 2015. It followed up to Windows 8. Part of the reason that Microsoft decided to name the 2015 release Windows 10 and skip the Windows 9 is because the operating system is designed to be new direction from Microsoft. One of the primary aims of Windows 10 is to unify the Windows experience across multiple devices, such as desktop computer and tablets. While Windows 10 includes many new features, it also brings back the Start menu, which dropped in Windows 8. The new and improved Start menu provides quick access to settings, folders, and programs, and also include tiles from the Windows 8 interface. The bottom of the Windows 8 Start menu includes a search bar that allows you to search your local PC and the web. Another major change in Windows 10 is introduction of the Edge web browser, which is designed to replace Internet Explorers. Other new features include Continuum, which automatically optimizes the user interface depending on whether you are using an external keyboard or touchscreen. Windows 10 also supports multiple desktops on a single monitor and provides Snap Assist, a feature that helps organize windows on the screen. One of the biggest differences between Windows 10 and previous releases of Windows is that the Windows 10 upgrade is available for free to Windows 7 and Windows 8 users. However, Microsoft still charges a licensing fees for copies of Windows 10 shipped with new computers and for non-upgrade purchase. Step-by-step explanation on Windows 10 installation. Step 1. Download the Windows 10 Media Creation Tool. The Windows 10 download is around 2.5 GB and will need to be copied to the blank DVD or USB flash drive for the installation. So, make sure you have something suitable to hand for this. Go to this link and click the download tool now. Just download a small media tool that will download the required Windows 10 setup file later. Step 2. Run the Windows 10 Media Creation Tool. When the download has finished, plug in your USB flash drive or insert a blank DVD in your PC DVD drive. Find this thing in your download folder and double-click it to run it. When the Windows 10 setup window appears, select the Create Installation Media for another PC option and click the Next button. Step 3. Choose your Windows 10 version. On your next screen, choose the language, edition, and architecture, which 32-bit or 64-bit, to match your current version of Windows 10. Don't select one of the N edition and this lack Windows Media Player. Click Next to continue. Step 4. Choose a storage device and start the download. Select the device you are going to use for Windows 10 installation. USB flash drive or ISO file for burning to DVD. Then, click the Next. Select the USB flash drive or a folder on your PC to store the Windows 10 setup file. Click the Next and the 4 GB download will begin. If you create the DVD ISO file, you will need to burn the file to DVD before you can use it to boot your PC. Else, you can boot using the USB flash drive. Step 5. Begin the Windows 10 installation. After you boot your PC using the Windows 10 DVD or USB flash drive, choose the Install Now option, and then skip the request for a product key to activate the Windows. As long as you have already to upgrade your PC to Windows 10, you won't need a product key. Step 6. Perform a custom install. When prompt, choose a custom. Install the Windows Only Advanced option. This will erase everything on your existing Windows 10 drive. So, be sure you have already backed up everything you want to keep before going any further. Step 7. Choose where to install. Select hard drive partition you want to install Windows 10 on. This should already be labeled as Windows 7, 8, or 10, but it should also be the largest partition in the list. If you are not sure which partition to use, seek help before going any further. If you are happy to continue, click the Format option and click the OK on the warning dialog box that appears. When the drive format is complete, click the Next. Step 8. Complete the setup. The Windows 10 installation will start now. When it is almost complete, you will be asked for a product key again. So, Click the Do This Later option at the bottom of the screen and finish the rest of the setup. Step 9. Confirm that Windows 10 has active. Once Windows 10 is installed, you need to check that it has been active. You may need to click the active button. You may also need to install the necessary driver for your PC network or Wi-Fi adapter first, since activation requires internet access. If activation won't complete successfully, you will need to contact the Microsoft, explain what happened, and ask for an activation code. This is inconvenient, but should be straightforward as long as your previous Windows 10 installation has active. So, I hope my sharing can help Mr. Ideal. But remember, you need to be very careful when you are working around these devices because every device you work has power. So, you need to be very careful to avoid injury. That's from me.